Namaskar, I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Welcome to our series Disha. It is an initiative by Department of Justice to spread legal awareness and literacy. The idea is that when you're legally informed, you're in a better position to fight for your rights and get justice. The theme of the episode today is social security for scheduled castes. In our deliberations, we'll explore and try and understand the challenges faced by this section of society and what are the social, economic and legal remedies available for people from this section. Joining me is a special guest. Let me welcome Professor Nuzhat Praveen Khan, Professor and former Dean, Faculty of Law, Jamia Millia Islamia University, New Delhi. Warm welcome to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shubhendu.
Ma'am, if we first talk about the historical background of the concept of scheduled caste, why certain communities were required and they were given special recognition by the Constitution?
Yeah, so today's program, while we are talking about the social security for scheduled caste, is a very welcome move by the Ministry, Department of Justice in this series of pro bono, that is Nyay Bandhu Justice. So thank you very much for inviting me and giving me this question, how we should understand. So generally it was seen India, which is generally a patriarchal society, and we were also being governed by the outside forces. So when we got independence, it was noticed that certain communities and certain caste of the country, they were suffering from extreme poverty, extreme exclusion, and some type of that exclusion was with regard to their social, economic development. And in that context, and this was an old age practice, it was going on and on, that certain quantum of people were being suppressed, oppressed, marginalized. So how the constitution makers, apart from many other things, they have brought this Article 341, where they have especially notified such people, scheduled caste, to be a community which need special attention. So they have been especially notified in the Constitution, and taking it forward, coming out of, and this type of marginalization and exclusion was due to many reasons. As I already said, it was social, economic, etc. But simultaneously, it was a type of untouchability against those people, and that maybe they have been excluded to some geographical areas also. So different type of exclusions were there. They were not being given opportunity to be with the general masses, and they were not enjoying all the infrastructural facilities. There were type of prohibition. Article 15 on the Constitution especially talks about that there should be no discrimination on the basis of caste, creed, color or sex, that people will not share the same restaurant or will not share the same nalka. So I mean that was existing in the society.
We've also come a long way from there. It's been over 75 years of independence. What is your assessment of the reality of discrimination? I mean, here caste-based discrimination in particular in our society today.
Yes, it is actually, it is still prevailing, and we see many episodes and instances of students even while they feel such type of discrimination against them, go to the extent of committing suicide. However, we have Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, we have different departments under that, we have different articles under the Constitution which give them reservation to be at par and to be equalizing to them, and that is reflecting in some data also, that by giving all these facilities, be it reservation in the educational institutions, be it reducing the discrimination which exists in the form of prohibitions, then giving them reservations in the employment. But somehow it is happening slowly and gradually. And
in fact, we'll talk about, ma'am, each of these areas of intervention and development in detail. But before that, since we are trying to understand the magnitude of the problem first, I also want to learn the manner in which gender intersects caste-based discrimination. I'm trying to ask, to women from weaker section, are they more vulnerable than the others?
So very good question. First of all, when we talk of our society, Indian society, in general, women are whether of higher caste or of Muslim community or of Dalit community or of OBC, generally women are being not given that equal status in our historical perspective. So and then if a woman is of scheduled caste, she is doubly jeopardized, isn't it? So that is how there are, they first of all, they are the beneficiary of all those schemes which are generally for the women, being a woman. Then they are giving the benefits of all those schemes which are being made, or all those beneficial programs which are made for the scheduled caste. Then simultaneously the government also is aware of what is your question, that they are being further marginalized, they are being further deprived, and they are further victimized. So in that context, there are many schemes and the laws which take care of especially a women being a woman from the scheduled caste community.
Right, and I think here we should talk about the laws. If we talk in letter and spirit, how does the Constitution safeguard the rights of scheduled castes?
Yes. First of all, we talk of equality, whether, there will be equality, there will be no discrimination on the basis of caste, color, sex, religion, etc.
Every citizen is equal before the law, that's the idea.
Yes. So according to Article 14 of the Constitution, everybody is equal before the law. It says equality before the laws and equal protection of the laws. But simultaneously, the lawmakers were aware that not everybody is equal, the way we are talking in Article 14. That is how they went on to frame Article 15 and 16 of the Constitution. And this is 15 takes care of the women, especially under Article 15 Clause 3, that the state will make special laws to bring the women at par. And then in the further clause, the 15 Article 14 Clause 4, it says even the marginalized sections of the society, scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, to bring them at par with that equality, we will make special legal provisions for their upliftment, for their bringing equal. Because and I'll just give you the example of two laws which have been made at that time, and they have been amended time to time. First law was Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe Prevention of Atrocities Act, because it was prevalent atrocities against this community. There was lots of human rights violation, what we call today. They were being sidelined, they were being marginalized, the jobs they were not given. Even if they were given some scavengers or manual scavengers job, or all type of dirty job, what we call, which were actually affecting their health also. And simultaneously people used to call them by name, and the name was Bhangi, etc. Which are prohibited. All these words, nomenclatures have been prohibited, and the law punishes very severely. This law was of 1989, and it was further made more stringent punishment in 2015. You can say the present government took notice of that the law is still there, but the law is not giving that stringent punishment. That was hampering to bring them at par, to bring them equal, because it's still you're sidelining, you're feeling they're untouchable.
Could you tell us a little more about the reform that was brought in the Prevention of Atrocities Act? What were those key reforms?
So some important key word is more stringent punishment. If you sideline, so punishment, because ultimately a law is effective if the punishments are there. So previously the punishment was not that, it was a little mild as compared to, so now there are very severe strict punishment, and there are many judgments also of the Supreme Court of India where they have taken note of. I can give you the nomenclature of few judgments whereby they have tried to talked about giving these people at par, and if you have called them by any nomenclature, severe punishments have been given. All of you must have heard that Mandal Commission case, Indira Sahni versus Union of India. Then we have Rameshwar Prasad case of the Supreme Court. Then we have Vasant Kumar case. So there are series of cases. If I go on and on, there are large number of cases whereby the Supreme Court also, at times we have law in place, but implementation of the law is another important step.
So, hugely important aspect, ma'am. So Constitution looks at everyone as equals, but if a member of the disadvantaged section is facing discrimination, if they're watching this program, for instance, and they want to know the simplest way in which they can approach the court and get justice, what would that process be?
It's actually not only about the court, it is about they have other agencies also, because court should be the ultimate recourse, isn't it?
Right.
So before that they have specialized agencies such as we have National Commission for Scheduled Caste, which actually take all those complaints which a person feel because of his or her being belonging to scheduled caste. So even at workplace, even in the general public, if they feel discriminated, they can bring it to the notice of that commission. That commission has been made just for the sake of their welfare, their upliftment of their dignity. So before going to the court, this is first step. And then if they want to go to the court, as I named one law, that is atrocities, scheduled caste atrocities of Prevention of Atrocities Act. Then there is another law called as Protection of Civil Rights Act. That law punishes for preaching and practicing of untouchability. So if you make any person that the person is a different person than to you, then the Civil Rights Act punishes you. So this is good development or good, and this is happening very soon. And now I feel even people have become, the society is also developing actually.
We'll talk about that, ma'am. We'll continue our conversation. We're heading for a short break. When we return, our conversation in Disha continues.
देश भर के 300 से भी अधिक संविधान सभा के सदस्यों की अथक परिश्रम और जोरदार मंथन के बाद भारत के लोगों ने स्वयं को अमृत कलश के रूप में दिया एक नायाब उपहार, संविधान। इसी जीवंत और पवित्र मार्गदर्शिका के बल पर हमें दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा और महान लोकतंत्र होने का गौरव प्राप्त है। 28 राज्यों और 8 केंद्र शासित प्रदेशों सहित 140 करोड़ से भी ज्यादा लोगों के विविधता भरे इस देश को एक सूत्र में पिरोता है हमारा संविधान। संविधान है हमारे देश का महाप्राण, जो हर एक नागरिक को सामाजिक, आर्थिक, राजनैतिक न्याय के साथ साथ प्रतिष्ठा, गरिमा और अवसर की समानता भी प्रदान करता है। गर्व है हमें अपने संविधान पर, जो हमें प्रकाश और आगे बढ़ने की प्रेरणा प्रदान करता है। स्वतंत्रता की 75 साल की गौरवपूर्ण यात्रा हमने इसकी मदद से पूरी की। समय समय पर जरूरत के अनुसार इसे और बेहतर किया। वंचितों तक इसकी पहुंच को और आसान बनाने को प्रतिबद्ध हैं हम। इसलिए लोकतंत्र के 75वें वर्ष में पूरे वर्ष हम करेंगे संविधान समर्पित। सबको न्याय, हर घर न्याय, नव भारत, नव संकल्प, विधि जागृति जैसे विविध अभियानों का आयोजन संविधान में लिखी समानता, कर्तव्य और अधिकारों के आधार पर ही हम संकल्प से सिद्धि की मंजिल भी हासिल करेंगे। हमारा संविधान, हमारा सम्मान।
Welcome back. You're watching Disha. Today we are talking about social security for scheduled caste, and with me, Professor Khan from Jamia Millia Islamia University continues to be with us. Ma'am, we're talking about also a sensitized society where such laws and acts don't have to be used. In that view, the education sector, I believe, is a hugely important place for both spreading information and also empowering people from weaker sections. We're talking about scheduled caste today. As a most fundamental tool of socio-economic empowerment, how has the system in India created an ecosystem of support for weaker sections, according to you?
When we talk of educational backwardness or economic backwardness, social backwardness or political backwardness or marginalization, of which educational empowerment is most important. Once you are educationally empowered, you are automatically going on to be economically empowered, and then once you are economically empowered, you will be socially empowered also. I'll just talk about reservations first. Employment reservation. Article 16 of the Constitution gives the reservation in the employment. All the educational institutions compulsorily bound to give reservations to, I mean, there is a particular percentage, I think it's 15% and then 27%.
For the weaker sections.
For the weaker sections, out of which a particular percentage which is allotted to the scheduled caste will be filled by those seats. Even if they don't come up, that will be carried forward. So that's a a good gesture. You cannot fill it because you didn't got the people. So that is being done. Then you have Article 330 and 332 talk about reservation in the parliament and the state legislature. Then you talk about various laws, and then if I talk of some educational institutions and educational benefits, so as we talked about the institutional reservation, but employment reservation is also there, and apart from
in education and other scholarships and interventions like that for weaker sections that they must be aware of.
Lots of scholarships which are there in the there are scholarships with regard to their being meritorious, there is scholarships with regard to their being for hostels, there are scholarships with regard to their educational facilitation, there are free hostels are also there. So some there are actually large numbers of scholarship for the students, even to the extent of getting them to study in the top class institutions or even foreign educations. For example, there is a scholarship scheme for top class educational institutions for SC students especially. So that shows that you will not deprive them only getting them study in substandard educational institutions. If a student makes it, so there are lots of, and even to go to the foreign institutions.
It's great to know that the system creates space for people from weaker sections, but as an educator, would you say that classroom space also needs special attention, that discrimination that was being followed outside does not continue in the classroom? So a holistic environment from the teachers, from the peers, from the parents. Absolutely. How important is that environment?
So the first institution is family itself. And when the family was discriminating, for example, your neighbor is somebody who belongs to scheduled caste and you are here in a higher caste, and in our country we have a caste hierarchy, which now is reducing because now we are more believing in your position, your economic status, and once you are well placed, so government by giving them reservation in the employment put many of these scheduled caste people in the higher positions, and simultaneously mind of the people, especially if you look at the metro cities, in the higher cities, even in the small cities also, it slowly, gradually it will go, and technology is also happening in all this. But it used to be lots of, and the children learn whatever they see in the family. The same was going to the classroom, and in the classroom, teacher is next to the parents. So it was or it is, and we are doing it, that we are making our students very sensitive with regard to whether it is gender sensitization. That's another aspect, because more and more girls are also coming into education, and the students from all the communities are also coming into education. So in the university system, I am noticing that now these students belonging to scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, they are not only earlier there was a perception, which was a myth actually, that if they are coming from this background, they may not be good in study. They don't have that caliber. Yes, if you are coming from reservation category, getting admitted, you don't have that type of caliber, but rather you are availing this benefit. But actually that is not so. I myself, being in for 35 years in the university, I noticed maybe admission they got it through that, but many of the students we see in the normal list, which is for the generalist category, few students are from SC categories or OBC, though they have the benefit of reservation, but they qualify in the general category. Similarly, in the classroom, when it comes to classroom, they are very bright. They are very bright students. So, and when they are bright students, the other students are taking their lead. They are following them. They are giving them the chance and opportunity. You can see many examples of leaders in universities. They are leading the students now.
And from education, ma'am, the next stage is job creation. Employment opportunities. Again, if you could underline some of the important programs by the government where employment and empowerment is in focus for the weaker sections and scheduled castes.
But before I go for that, I will just tell you the level of enrollment, gross enrollment for the students, how it has increased for the scheduled caste students.
That's an important yardstick to see if the welfare measures are
how
reaching
they are. First of all, government is giving benefit, and then they are availing that benefit. Because merely giving the benefits and the schemes and financial schemes or uniform or fees is not sufficient unless that being availed. And I think the present era of technology and information is helping the people to access their rights. to avail the rights and the scheme, and also the way the money or the benefits are directly reaching to them. There's no middleman. That is also
and could you share the data of enrollment?
Yeah. So I'm talking about the data. So data has, in the recent report, it has increased in the school level. If we talk of primary school, it has gone to 90%. Of the total population of, as per the census, the total population of scheduled caste, 90% students are of that.
So
community.
they're availing and they're reaching.
Yes, and that's a very high quantity. Then we generally say after primary they're dropouts. But then also, if you look at the secondary level, it's 80% of the students of their total population. They're up to 12th class. And when you go to the university level, that is university and colleges education, which is called as higher education. Even in the higher education, it remains quite high, that is around 60% of the students are reaching to the higher education. So that says that gives you a glimpse of then they will be in employment also, the similar number of people if they are availing education. So even in the employment ratio, it is around 12% of the central government job as per 2001 census. 12% of the jobs were given to the scheduled caste people. But if we look at in the 2018 some of the reports, because after 2011 we didn't have any census, so this 2011 says that representation in the government job of the scheduled caste people rise into 18%.
Right. And any specific plans, government plans? We understand Stand Up India, for example, is targeting women in particular from weaker sections.
So there are,
any plans that you'd like to underline?
Yes, we talk about National Action Plan for Skill Development. Skill development, Kaushal Kendra, you might have noticed, the government has given. So even that has helped the people to gain the employment. I mean, even if you are not very highly educated, being part of these Kaushal Kendras, then there is this scheme of Vanchit Ikai and Samuh ka jo Arthik Sahayata karna. Then a scheme for some type of Ambedkar Social Innovation and Incubation Mission. Innovation centers have been created, and these large number of people have been given to work with these innovation centers. Then I'll talk about some more guarantees and a scheme which are for the scheduled caste people. Credit Enhancement Guarantee Scheme for scheduled caste people, and then a special scheme for the benefit of scheduled caste. Delhi, we have certain schemes which are central in nature. Then each state also have some of the benefits and some of the schemes for their people. So regarding education, I'll come back again because I'm an education person. There are many schemes for the education, such as a scheme for residential education for students in higher schools, which is Shrestha. And some schools have been created whereby they will be given admission, and then Ambedkar Chhatravas Yojana is there, which is free of cost. In fact, in Jamia, I am coming from Jamia, we have a career advancement cell, which is, I think you might have read in the newspaper, they are producing large number of IAS officers. And you won't believe, looking at the Jamia as an institution, maybe producing only Muslim. No, not that true. Out of the 30 or 35 students which they produce in the list of 200 students which are finally selected in UPSC, most of the students are sidelines and marginalized students.
Right.
Because we are giving them free hostel, free living, free, that teaching in that coaching institute.
That's wonderful to learn, ma'am. And also you mentioned Dr. Ambedkar, and I think as we conclude this conversation, very briefly your thoughts on the manner in which life and legacy of Dr. Ambedkar and great men and women like him who worked for the upliftment of the weaker sections over the centuries. How do you reflect on their contribution?
Yes, there are, Ambedkar's name is one of the very important names, but if we look, there are many more names, such as Munda was there, he did a lot for the education. Ambedkar, we have already talked about. Then, Jagjeevan Ram also did, and there are many scholarships in his name also. So a large number of people are there who have helped to achieve many schemes, and people contributed financially also. They have given scholarships by their own pockets, by their own earnings. That's a great gesture. Even I'm thinking of in my whole life, what I'm going on to contribute to the educational society to uplift some of the margin. Right now also I do some of the thing which I don't want to tell you in whole, but in future I think that's a very good gesture, and that has been done in past. Many people whose contribution is there for the upliftment of the marginalized people, and even Vajpayee, our former Prime Minister Vajpayee Sahab, he also did lot for the upliftment of the scheduled caste and scheduled diet.
On that note, Professor Khan, thank you so much for joining us in this episode of Disha and sharing those insights. And that brings us to the close of this edition of Disha. We'll return next week with another socially sensitive theme to talk about the message of empowerment and legal literacy. On that note, I'll take your leave for now. Namaskar.
देश भर के 300 से भी अधिक संविधान सभा के सदस्यों की अथक परिश्रम और जोरदार मंथन के बाद भारत के लोगों ने स्वयं को अमृत कलश के रूप में दिया एक नायाब उपहार, संविधान। इसी जीवंत और पवित्र मार्गदर्शिका के बल पर हमें दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा और महान लोकतंत्र होने का गौरव प्राप्त है। 28 राज्यों और 8 केंद्र शासित प्रदेशों सहित 140 करोड़ से भी ज्यादा लोगों के विविधता भरे इस देश को एक सूत्र में पिरोता है हमारा संविधान। संविधान है हमारे देश का महाप्राण, जो हर एक नागरिक को सामाजिक, आर्थिक, राजनैतिक न्याय के साथ साथ प्रतिष्ठा, गरिमा और अवसर की समानता भी प्रदान करता है। गर्व है हमें अपने संविधान पर, जो हमें प्रकाश और आगे बढ़ने की प्रेरणा प्रदान करता है। स्वतंत्रता की 75 साल की गौरवपूर्ण यात्रा हमने इसकी मदद से पूरी की। समय समय पर जरूरत के अनुसार इसे और बेहतर किया। वंचितों तक इसकी पहुंच को और आसान बनाने को प्रतिबद्ध हैं हम। इसलिए लोकतंत्र के 75वें वर्ष में पूरे वर्ष हम करेंगे संविधान समर्पित। सबको न्याय, हर घर न्याय, नव भारत, नव संकल्प, विधि जागृति जैसे विविध अभियानों का आयोजन संविधान में लिखी समानता, कर्तव्य और अधिकारों के आधार पर ही हम संकल्प से सिद्धि की मंजिल भी हासिल करेंगे। हमारा संविधान, हमारा सम्मान।